Alright guys, first of all, sorry for the wind. It is a bit of a gloomy day here in Central Florida. I have a story to tell. It's a true story. It's a story about a girl who has a gift. Many say it's a gift from God. It's a gift of uncertainty, of being afraid, of not knowing what to do. Why I'm in the graveyard is actually sort of part of what I want to talk about. So this little girl, she was born in Utah, loving family. When she was about 2 or 3 years old, she lived in this big house in Hyde Park in Cache Valley in Utah. And in this big house they had a basement. Now in this basement there was a compartment where they stored the holiday stuff. Christmas and Halloween. I'm sure there was other knickknacks and items in there. But it was dark and it was scary. Especially for a little girl around this age. Now, this little girl always felt really scared around this. Her siblings never were, but she was petrified. She would go near the Freudian slip, go near the stairs where everything was stored, and she would just keep on getting this feeling of foreboding. That's the only way I could describe it. It's eerie, it's scary, it's unnatural. Something she wasn't familiar with. She would try day after day to get closer and closer because there was a Santa Claus there. And she wanted to see this Santa Claus. Ooh, there is it right there. This Santa Claus. But she could never do it. So she finally gave up. And eventually, they moved. They moved from Hyde Park to Hiram to a very small apartment. Now, I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. And I believe this apartment was only 2 bedrooms. So imagine, if you will, 3 boys and 2 girls in a small bedroom. Sorry, these are all little kids, by the way. And to her relief, there was nothing weird, as far as she knew, about this place. She had fun with her siblings and was starting to going to school and doing what little kids do. Her mother, oh look, there's a neck right there. Neck is actually the people who built the house I live in. Sorry. And we moved to New Mexico, to Gallup. And things started to happen all over again. Now, her parents like to watch stuff like unsolved mysteries about aliens and ghosts, and this freaked her out even more. And as she was going along her merry little life here in Gallup, her and her sister started to hear things and see things. They started getting scared. One night, we heard footsteps come close to our bedroom door. My sister called out my brother's name, hoping that it was them. It wasn't. She got scared. She ran to go get my parents, and my dad came in and he gave us a blessing. And my sister started playing. This was the start of playing music while we were sleeping. So it would comfort us. So we would have something more to focus on other than whatever else was going on around us. Now, this wasn't the end of the story. There were still strange things happening in that house, but we only lived there for a year. And after that year, her mother got a job at News and Journal in Brigham City. And so starts her journey into more of the supernatural, the unexplained, seeing and hearing things other people do not hear nor see. It grew in intensity. Now, some people would say I am being followed by an evil spirit. But see, it's not just one spirit. If it was just one spirit, I'd be like, yes, I'm being followed. But it wasn't just one spirit. See, in the years growing up, at the age of 12, still a child, mind you, going into preteen, she was walking her dogs. And she got to a certain point, to the front of her backyard neighbor's house, and there was nothing really out of the normal until she heard "Brin!" And that scared me. Made me bolt down the road. Forget the dogs, forget it all. I am out of there. That's not good. And so, like I said, things started getting more intense than what it was before. And it was scary. It was petrifying. And I think the spirits knew that, and so it calmed down. I would still hear, voices and see things, but it wasn't as intense. And I think this was the way of the spirits sort of saying, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to scare you. Well, I guess they thought at a certain point I was ready to handle it. Something a little bit more. Come to the age of 18. That person's from Norfolk. Just in case you don't see that. I was sitting at my parents' computer, either talking to a friend or playing a game. And my parents' bedroom at that time was in a situation where it sort of faced both the family room, and the kitchen. I looked up for a split second, and there was a man there. I could see him as plain as anybody else. Like, he was physical. It was like I could reach out and touch him. I can describe every detail of the clothing, what his hair looked like, just everything. It wasn't scary. Like I said, I think the spirits got to the point where they were like, okay, she's old enough now. Well, they were right. I was old enough. I wasn't scared. I wasn't freaked out. I was more curious than anything. So let me describe this person for you. He was a teenager, maybe 15, 16, 17. I mean, I could definitely tell he was a teenager and not an adult. He had brown hair. It was slicked back in the style of, the 1920s. He was wearing a blue plaid shirt. I could see the plaid. It was blue, white. I believe there was some brown in there. And, I wasn't scared. But I could definitely say that I wasn't calm either. Now, that wasn't the only occurrence that day. At nighttime, I was watching a show called Whose Line Is It Anyways? It was one of my go-to shows during the nighttime. And as it was getting to the point of 11-ish, I would say, I looked over toward my front door, and there in the front door was a shadowy figure. I wasn't scared. I wasn't concerned. I was intrigued because during the day I saw that other figure. And as I looked back to the TV to see if my show was back on, and I looked back, the person was gone. Now, I have heard many times, and I do not believe it, that spirit, when they are black, mean they are evil. That is just sort of how they manifest themselves. A shadowy spirit is not evil. Evil is intent to do harm. There was no way that I felt like I was in harm's way. I think that spirit was as curious as I was. I later found out from my dad that where my house was built, there was a cabin there that they used for exercises for the fire department. Maybe somebody died on that land. Maybe they still had connections to that land and they just never wanted to leave. I still have experiences to this day. The worst experience I think I've had was when we still lived in Colorado. It was maybe the second year or the third year we were living there. And my mom wanted to reach out to my grandpa or my gramps. And as she was doing this, she unknowingly was playing with something like a Ouija board. Now, I am going to tell you something about Ouija boards. And being who I am, being spiritually sensitive, being able to hear them, to see them, to talk to them, Ouija boards are no good. Yes, they are manufactured by gaming companies. Yes, they are sold. But they are sold mainly by profits. Knowing very well what these Ouija boards are. They're portals. Portals of the unknown. You could be summoning who knows what. But my mother, she made a makeshift one. She wrote out letters across papers, and then she was dangling like a jewel or gem, I can't recall. And she was asking my gramps to communicate with her to move the item to a certain letter. Hopefully that it would be spelling out something. Oh, it didn't spell out something, but it did sure create something. Without the proper protection, without the proper knowledge, she most definitely conjured up something that was ill. The dogs were afraid to go inside. The cats would start hiding. It was an uncomfortable situation, and it wasn't my mother's fault. She didn't know. And we had to explain to her what happened. So my dad had to go and had to cleanse the area so everything would get back to normal again. My mother wishes for me to continue on this journey of being spiritually sensitive. That will never go away. Being spiritually sensitive will never leave. But it is my willingness to become more connected to the other side is my choice, and my choice alone. And I am afraid of it because of what can happen, because of what attachments can happen, because of what things are called to you. Now, if you are spiritually sensitive, you have a certain vibration, a certain tone to the environment. And spirits, people, I'm going to call them people because that's what they are. People are attracted to you. And through this attraction also comes ill things. Now, there are ways to protect you, I know. But that doesn't make this less scarier than what it is. Yes, I have received messages from the other side. Yes, they were all perfectly normal and safe. I also have dreams that are so vivid that it scares me. There was one where I thought I was dead. And literally, somebody from the other side had to say, "Bryn, open your eyes. It's okay. You're not dead." That limb just fell down. By the way, there's homeless people in that place right there. So I'm trying to stay away from it because homeless people in Florida are a little sketchy. Not all. I'm not saying that all of them are, but I mean, if you have seen the news in Florida, all the really bad homeless people end up stabbing you or shooting you over stupid little matters. But I think that's anywhere. So, anyways, I know I have friends that have loved ones that have passed on who would love to hear from their parents or their grandparents. Recently, I just found out my big brother, my nieces, lost their pet, Enzo. Needless to say, I can also see spirit animals. Those animals in which have passed. Because I am this sensitive, I can also feel the feelings of the spirits. Anger, regret, remorse, sadness, happiness. They feel just like you and me. Now, if my friends are watching this and they want me to connect to somebody, I would like them to ask me personally, because it is the easiest way for me to do it. It's an easier connection for me, so it's not a forced connection. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the spirits come willingly. And yes, I know there are people who are going to be skeptical of this, and I understand that, and skepticism is fine. But bullying is not. I have had this gift since I was little. And I can talk more about it, and if you want to know more about this gift and more stories, let me know. Leave a comment. And also don't forget to press subscribe and click the like button, because there will be more stories on the way. And who knows? Maybe you may discover that somebody from the other side wants to have a chat with you. Remember, be you, be bold, be wonderful, be brave, be all you can be, because there is always and forever one you. Love you lots from Central Florida.